Oh, you are giving the sport way too much credit. We only get media attention at the Olympics. Like,
Okay.
no one pays attention. It's just like, it's such an insular world. Like, it's such a
Yeah.
traditional sport. Like,
How's your week been though?
It's been good. I am coming down on the end of my sabbatical time, so I'm been interviewing for some jobs, and I'm just like, how much is my soul worth? What is indentured servitude really worth in the world? At least I'm less sick now, which is good.
That's great. Yeah. Recovered. Speaking of sick, that's a terrible. No, we're gonna leave it in. That's a terrible segue. Something pretty sick is happening when this episode drops. We will have dropped this right before the opening ceremonies of the Paris Summer Olympics.
Cool.
Go sports.
Go sports indeed.
So to celebrate the Olympics, we are going to have an interview with Kate Hansen, an Olympian who didn't compete in summer, but she competed in the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi.
And she was one of my old neighbors.
And she was one of my old roommates.
And she answered all of our questions about her experiences in the games and life as a commentator and an interviewer since then.
So we'll wrap up the episode talking about the finale of The Acolyte. Stick around for that. But until then, let's enjoy getting to know Kate Hansen.
Alex is a movie guy. And I know I'm a reality TV girl, and that's my biggest flaw. But he's a movie guy. He's a Marvel guy.
Ah.
So
A man after my own heart.
we did when we like first got married. I was like, let me give Marvel a try because I never liked Marvel, and then I was like, okay, it's fine. But then we've been getting into natural disaster movies the last week. So we did The Day After Tomorrow, Independence Day, and Volcano. I don't know if you know.
I've never seen Volcano. No.
Oh my gosh, it's about a volcano that erupts in LA.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds
So we
fun.
might do, what is it? 2012. What's the next? What's like?
Yeah, 2012 is a good one.
Like
These are all made by the same guy.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich, right? All of his
oh,
movies.
really?
He just loves seeing people die en masse, and we get to watch it.
Well, stressful. I like really feel the things. Like
Yeah.
it's like a plausible thing. But no, I went to the movies last night and I saw Bike Riders.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that at the end for sure.
Okay, cool.
You haven't seen it yet, Madison. You have to go see
No,
it. Okay.
I know.
We just talked about it on Monday. All right. Okay, we're already doing it. So if nothing else, let's just start recording the podcast. For everyone listening who knows you or doesn't, can you just recap what your connection to the Olympics is, or why we're even having you on to talk about the Olympics?
Okay, great. My connection to the Olympics, everyone always asks, tell us about who you are. And usually people just want to hear about the Olympic part.
Yeah.
I usually will say, oh, I love Celine Dion and I love all the fun things. But in
Yep.
terms of the Olympics, I competed in the 2014 Sochi Olympics. So 10 years ago.
Wow.
10 years ago this year.
Yeah, this year.
Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go back in time. So who was childhood Kate? Celine Dion. I remember you crying during the Whitney Houston documentary at our house when we were roommates.
Oh,
Talk
wow.
about little Kate.
Wow. I just did a lot of sports growing up. I was sports girl. I was tomboy. I just did all the things. And the luge thing came around when I was 10 years old. So they have like recruitment clinics for the American program. And they came to Long Beach. And I went and tried out when I was 10 years old. And at that age, it's just like a fun thing to do. It's like, why not? And you meet kids and I don't know, it's just like fun for like an active kid. It's like an interesting thing, but you're not ever really thinking like, oh, I'm going to go to the Olympics. Only the crazies are thinking that, to be honest.
For sure.
It's the crazy kids that are like, I'm going to the Olympics, and they're the ones that get cut early. So
Yeah.
So anyways, that's how I kind of got involved around 10 years old, and then it took off from there. Yeah. What do you want to know? I could go any direction with it, but like some people are really interested in different parts of it.
We have a couple questions that'll kind of guide us, but also if there's something you want to talk about more that maybe you haven't talked about, let us be your exclusive outlet. I want to know, first off, why snowy Long Beach? Why was the luge recruiting out of the beach?
Yeah, smart. So when I made it onto the national team and I became someone that helped put on these events, I realized why. So they essentially pick places that they want to go vacation in.
Oh my gosh.
So like the national team athletes will be like, and this was like during the heyday of USA Luge, meaning we had sponsors, we had money.
Yeah.
Verizon was sponsoring us. So like our resources were much more bountiful at the time than
Okay.
like when I started to like get into the coaching era, I guess. But so like they went to like Hawaii one year. So like there
Oh my
was a kid in my
gosh.
program from Hawaii. So as I got older, I realized they came to Long Beach because they like wanted to come to California, but they did stops. They did like Dallas. They would go to like they just go around the area because local programs. So we have two tracks in America, one in New York, one in Park City.
Okay.
And like local programs are great, but they're just not big enough to get enough talent to be like credible at an international level. So like USA has to go and like spread the word, I guess, on it. So they came to Long Beach because they like wanted to come to California. It just happened to be when I was 10 years old and at the age of trying out.
That's fun. I was like, Jamaican bobsled is just the same kind of thing of like, maybe we try someone from the beach. Okay, it's just a vacation destination.
Yeah, but now they don't really come to California. So I think I was like one of the last, I guess, like recruitment classes out of California.
Gotcha.
And now they kind of will just stay more local. Because I mean, it makes more sense. Like if a kid is going to give what is needed to be given to this type of program, like to be in an accessible place
Yeah.
makes so much more sense. So like every time I'd go train, I'd have to fly, 5-6 hours across the country, which is then a 3-hour time difference. So like for me, just to go to a training camp was a whole day of travel.
Yeah.
And it's a whole day of travel back. Whereas like if you live in Connecticut or Pennsylvania, you can just drive and like your family can come to races. Like it makes way more sense to like be a local.
What kind of aptitude are people looking for when they're recruiting for luge?
Yeah,
Is
good.
it just like a certain kind of insanity to just throw yourself down and ice shoot?
I still feel like I'm processing that journey in my life. And so when I think about it, like I remember what we were looking for when I was recruiting kids. So we were just looking for kids that like paid attention, could take direction, and like weren't afraid to go down the hill. So like you're not looking for and like a semi-athletic kid. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids got through the program that weren't really athletic at all. And so it's really just more like cognitive ability, like do they pay attention? Like, are they like with it type of thing? Because you can coach any kid if they are like able to pick up on things. And then like athletic ability, thankfully, luge isn't really an athletic sport. So like you don't have to be like one of my best friends on the national team. She would say this herself. Like she couldn't even like run in a straight line. Like she just was lanky. She was lanky, like just couldn't do it, but she could slide incredibly well. She was tall, she was lean, and she could just like feel curves really well. So
Mm-hmm.
luge is like a really specific sport where athletic ability is a major plus, and most of the Olympians at that level are like top athletic ability, but to like make the national team and get through the ranks, like they're just looking for kids that like aren't afraid, can pay attention, and like want to be there.
That's really funny. I like that a lot because when I watch this stuff on TV, I just think, how much money would it take for someone to pay me to throw myself down and ice shoot like that?
I love this question because okay, so I'm 10 years out of the sport, retired when I was 21, and I have recently started working with the International Federation as a broadcaster. So I'm like reconnecting with the roots of the sport. So I'm watching races and I'm watching athletes and I'm like, could I get on a sled? Like, I don't think I could. Like, this is crazy. Like, this was crazy. Like, I can't believe that I did this. And I feel comfortable with the sport and I'm uncomfortable now with the idea of going down a track. So when I think about a normal person posing that question, I'm like, that is an interesting question, actually. It's obviously so much more work than people anticipate, as it is with any sport.
Yeah.
But like the big component of sliding is just like I don't know if you've ever had like what are both of your biggest wipeouts or crashes you've ever had?
I don't know. I took some big spills snowboarding growing up.
Okay. Tristan?
I have not had many. I've kept myself out of it. Some bad spills, skiing a couple times, or like water skiing, really biffing at hard water skiing and like
Yeah.
struggling to come up. That's
Okay.
probably my worst. But yeah.
So like imagine your worst crash and that moment of fear where you're like, oh my gosh, I could get really hurt. Like
Yeah.
I'm strapped into the snowboard, I could tear my ACL right now. Or like water skiing, you're like, I actually can't breathe. Like it's the moment of like, oh, this got really serious. So like that moment happened for me like every week
Oh,
growing up. But you're going 80 miles and 70, 80 miles an hour and you don't stop until you slow down. So your body is like taking the friction until you naturally slow down, you know? So it's like, whereas like a snowboard wipeout, you wipe out, you could get hurt, but like it ends, you know, like unless you're tomahawking down the mountain or like, you know what I mean? Whereas like water skiing,
Yeah.
you come up and it's over. But like luge, because it's a hill and there's no brakes and there's nothing to stop you, like you slide all the way to the bottom till gravity stops. And that friction on your body is like sandpaper.
oh
So
my
Wow.
gosh.
that's the part that I'm like, people don't realize that because ice just looks like smooth and like a water slide. So it's like it's the initial physical impact of whatever crash you had, and then it's the insult to injury until you slow down. And that's the part that I'm like, I just like can't believe I like signed up for that for so long.
Yeah, I don't want to focus too much on it, but can you talk for a second about your parents' role in saying, yeah, this is a good idea, or were they kind of just patiently watching you try it out? What was their take on it when you first got involved?
Yeah, that's a good question. People don't really ask me that question. In the beginning, it was like daddy daughter day, Saturday,
Okay,
mom,
fun. Yeah.
like do something. My cousin came, like it was just like a fun thing. And then after it got started to get serious, my parents were not super into it
Okay.
and started to see that it wasn't just like a fun, like it started to pick up.
Yeah.
And it was actually my first year. So at 10 years old, you try and get through the ranks. You're making it through a development team. You're flying around. You're trying to just like get noticed. Then you're put on like a candidate team or whatever. So it's a few levels till you make the junior national team. So I made the junior national team, which means you go live in Germany for like 5 months of the year. And
Wow.
I was super stoked. I was like, wow, I did it. I get to go to Europe, whatever. And I came home that Christmas and my dad rolled out like a big piece of butcher paper and made a
Wow.
10-year plan. And he was like, we need to talk about this because this is a dead end sport. And I was like, okay, let's talk
Wow.
about it. So we made two different tracks, which neither of them included the Olympics. They both included like quitting in the next couple of years. Like
Yeah.
my parents were very much like, you need to go get an education. And they didn't anticipate that I would take it all the way to the games. Oh, wild.
Wow. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, just you mentioning how a crash looks and then being like, how did your parents feel taking you to practice every week or
Yeah,
saying
I
like,
don't
let's go to
even
another competition at 80 miles an hour?
I don't even know if I've actually never gotten their opinion on the physicality. Like I don't know what they think actually. But I
Yeah.
like my brother broke his leg skiing. So like
Oh,
the youngest of four. So like I think they kind of knew there was going to be things with it, but I think it was just more the time spent away from family was like the brutal part. And just they were probably thinking like, what did we do? Like, why did
yeah.
we get into this? Because she's gone so much and like, and they couldn't really connect with the sport. So like I'd come home from training and they'd have nothing to say. I'd have nothing to say. And
Yeah.
it just was like I was just in my own world of trying to figure out this really random sport. And like that's just like my dad's a baseball guy. Like he's just
There's no
not
fantasy luge to keep track of all
a
season.
luge
Yeah.
guy, you know? Not a luge guy.
We love a baseball guy.
One day,
Yeah.
one day. I mean, I was going to say, yeah, this is a stupid question. I'm going to ask it anyways. You have to train on ice. So are you only training winter? Are you just flying wherever the ice is? Is there a summertime, like a metal track? Is there something else?
Yeah. Also, great questions, guys. So in the winter, you're on ice, and so you will fly to like Norway, like in
Okay.
September when it's like colder sooner. So yeah, you are following the ice.
Okay.
It's the endless winter. You're following the ice for the winter, but in the summer, we will do the same track with no ice. So we actually
Wow.
wear go-kart suits and we go down on wheeled sleds. And
Wow.
yeah, that's now I think about it, it's crazy. But
I
you know
bet
what?
wipeout on that really hurts.
You just don't. Like, it's just not an option.
Just don't wipe out.
But I did get word now that I work a job with the International Federation. I was talking to some old German athletes, and they used to do it with speed suits, just regular thin spandex
Oh my
suits. They're
gosh.
just like, oh yeah, crashing was not an option. So I think
Wow.
like as the years, because like luge, my coach was from the Soviet Union. Like my other coach was from the Czechoslovakia. So like the roots of the sport are like pretty gritty and like
Yeah.
pretty just intense. And so I think as the years have come, they've come away from like such, I keep thinking industrial training. It's not industrial training, but that's just what the base of the sport was, I guess.
Just something that gritty. I mean, yeah, you talk about being away from family so often. Did you ever feel like life was passing you by, or were you so invested and excited about the sport you're like, this is it, this is life?
I felt like I had a responsibility to like see it through
Yeah.
because I was always told like like much is given, much is required. So
Yeah.
I felt like I was given this thing
Mm-hmm.
that I needed to see where it took me because I saw a lot of kids that weren't as, I guess, natural to the sport, but wanted it more than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about going to the Olympics. I just wanted to go to Europe. Like I just wanted to go travel. So I felt guilty because I felt like I was a little more, I guess, gifted in the sport, but I didn't want it as bad. So I like
Yeah.
carried this conscience of like, I don't think I deserve to be here, like all this type of thing. So I feel, yeah, I mean, everyone's like on a different journey with it, but
Of course.
I wasn't like obsessed with the sport. I was obsessed with the people and the traveling. And like the training was really interesting to me. And I don't really miss sliding. Like I would never, like I don't really need to get on a sled at all, but I miss the people. So
Mhm.
I was never really like, I love this sport, let's do it. I got into it and then I was in the washing machine of it. And then I was like, I think I could do this. And then I was like, I don't think I could do this. I'm like, actually, I think I could do this. I should, let's just see. Let's just see if I can. And I realized I'd have a bigger fear of regret over fear of failure. So at that
Yeah.
point, I just got committed to it.
So you said you were a really like sporty kid growing up, very active. Did you also have a really high competitive drive? Because like, hearing you say that you just happened to be really good at this thing, but you weren't as obsessed with it as like everyone else. I can't imagine what it is like to be around such a competitive environment all the time.
Yeah, as a kid, I was competitive because it was fun and I loved to beat the boys. Like that
And you
was
loved winning.
it wasn't like I loved winning. I just loved because girls at that time, now I feel like there's so much more equality among sports. At that time, like girls were like not competitive with boys at all. And I have two older brothers, so I just like loved and I could beat the boys. Like some of the boys on our team weren't that athletic, but like I just like was. Like it felt incredible to, they'd build obstacle courses or like all the training we had. And it felt so good to like beat these boys that just were running their mouths. And like, that was like something I could do. And so I just felt so empowered by doing that. So like, but like winning, I never really aligned with. And then even like the sport, I was always just trying not to lose because it was so cutthroat, which is obviously why I'm not doing this anymore because I didn't have I didn't have the mental capacity to be like,
Yeah.
we are winning. Like it's just not, it felt fake to me for me. So I was just trying to survive and like, I don't know, I was young. I didn't really have my mental game locked in yet. I was still figuring it out. But if I would have kept sliding, I would have been able to figure it out a little more, but it was just like a lot of stress at a young age. So I was
Yeah.
just trying to keep my head above water. But yeah, it is an incredibly competitive environment, especially when you start racing up in higher divisions. Then it's like, eat or be eaten. Like that's like what it was. So I didn't I didn't know. Now if I did it, I would have a totally different approach. At the time, I just was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and just trying to not get cut. I definitely feel like I saw how special it was that luge has such quick access to international competition. Like
Mhm.
for me to reach like international competition, in soccer, it would have taken so many more years or that type of thing. I mean, granted, I would have gotten probably an education with that as well. I'll restart,
Perhaps.
which would have been, that's a whole different story. That would have been nice. But yeah, I feel like my first time on the international season, I was like, whoa, this is cool. And I was racing at youth level. So it's like Olympic, senior, junior, youth. So like I was like bottom of the barrel, but even then to be like competing against Russians, hearing Russian up the track and like hearing German, I just was like, whoa, like this is the big leagues and this is so cool. So I definitely like I feel like I really valued it and appreciated it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this is a Wikipedia moment. 2008, you become youngest world champion, right? Does it change your life dramatically, or are you just having fun, making friends, and doing your sport?
Yeah, it kind of did because I was planning on quitting.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I was planning on, according to the 10-year plan, I was planning on being done and becoming the best in the world at 15 just was different. Like
Yeah.
the coaches were like, you can't leave. And at that point, so on the 10-year plan, it was like, okay, we'll finish out the year and then we're going to go back to junior year of high school. We're going to play softball. We'll play soccer. We'll get recruited. We'll go to college. But then like that season, yeah, I just like had an incredible end of the year and I became the best in the world at 15. And then I was just like, whoa, this is like a thing. Like
Wow.
maybe I gotta stay. I don't.
Yeah,
So then I was like, okay, let's just see how another year goes.
that's fun. I guess in combination with that, how were you seeing the Olympics make an impact in athletes' lives from around the world, but also lay people? Like, were you interacting much with the media? Were you like doing PR tours or press tours? Were you meeting people in different places?
Oh, you are giving the sport way too much credit. We only get media attention at the Olympics. Like
Okay.
no one pays attention. It's just like it's such an insular world. Like it's such a traditional sport. Like it's very unrelatable to the public, which is why I have the job I do now because I'm trying to do a broadcast push to make it consumable because a lot of people don't know what they're watching. So like no PR tour, no world tour by any means. It was like your hometown papers would give you a call and like,
Yeah.
oh, you won this race, whatever. But as the Olympics get closer, like they definitely try and ramp up and like, oh, this is what's going on with the team. I mean, anyone who's an Olympic hopeful, they will like try and PR them as best they can.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I feel like by the time I got to the games, I was just so excited to be there that like I took every media opportunity. And the truth is, growing up in Los Angeles, I had a sports writer live up the street from me.
Oh, nice.
I made Bill Plaschke is
Bill
the guy.
Plaschke.
Yeah. And my parents had a chat with him when I made the Olympic team. And he was like, she needs to say yes to everything. Like
Wow.
every interview, say yes. And he's like, this is the opportunity to like talk about herself. Like if like have her talk about surfing, have her talk about skateboarding, like have her talk about anything that makes her interesting because we reporters talk to athletes every year and it's the same thing every year. So he pretty much was just like any opportunity to like, I don't know, to like fill in her life story, she should do it. So that's kind of what I did. I said yes to everything and I really like I don't know. I really made it count. I feel like.
Yeah. Did Kimmel come during the games, before the games, after the games?
Okay, so Jimmy Kimmel came when I was at the Olympics. So again, growing up in LA, there's just connections to the industry,
Yeah.
someone who knew someone of a family friend who gave out my email to the producers of the show.
Oh my gosh.
And I got an email when I was in the Olympic Village saying, hey, we want to do this prank. You know that Jimmy Kimmel does these pranks. And we want to recreate the Olympic Village like a set.
Okay.
So can you send us pictures? We're going to build it and we're going to send a wolf through it. And then all we need is your Twitter information. And at that point, I was done racing and I was so fed up with the media situation at the Olympics. Like it just was,
Okay.
it was annoying. Like they're interviewing you during your race, which is like, it's
Yeah.
just too much. It's too much. And I saw just what like a PR conundrum the Olympics is and how they don't actually really care about the sports. They just want the story. And
Mhm.
so I just saw it and I was over it. So anyways, they're like, is there anyone we need to clear this by for you to do this? And I was like, no, I don't have an agent. Like let's do it. So I sent them pictures, sent them my Twitter. They posted it and it just
Mhm.
freaked the frack out. And it was a mess. It was a total mess. It was fun. I don't know. It was a problem because it caused a security breach. Like people in the Olympics were like, yeah,
Wow. A
yep,
little more blowback than just Jimmy Kimmel. All right.
yeah, yep. It was bad. I almost like got sent home from the
Oh
game.
my gosh.
Almost wasn't let to walk in closing ceremonies and
Oh
just.
my gosh.
But then I got back to the States and everyone was like, "Great job, that was hilarious."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
We all love the entertainment over here.
yeah, I guess it was fine. But it was funny because I met him in real life at a Dodger game at the
Okay.
job I have. And I saw him on like a red carpet and I was interviewing people and I was like, Jimmy, Kate Hansen, Sochi Olympics, said it. And then he was just like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Like,
At least he
anyway,
apologized. That's fun.
he was super nice. Yeah, it was fun. Now I'm like, great, I'm glad I did it. That was very authentic to me. But at the time,
Yeah.
it was a mess.
Yeah.
I've got a question that maybe a little bit of a left field kind of question,
Mhm.
but so you're a kid growing up in the spotlight, you're going to the Olympics, and to me that feels like I would be on the receiving end of a lot of projections from other people, and that I feel like over time you would kind of get caught up in how everyone else is seeing you.
Mhm.
And so how do you maintain your connection to like yourself? Because I'm sure there's some amount of imposter syndrome that is going along with that. And so like how do you maintain your connection to yourself while like walking into rooms with like really big shots while you're yourself are kind of a big shot and like dealing with the projections of all these people around you on an international scale?
Okay, the thing about luge and the thing about the Olympics is that you are not a thing until the last 2 weeks of your career. So like 11 years to get to
Mhm.
1 month of the Olympics. So like you're not a big shot until the very last second. And
Mhm.
and at that point, when I was at the Olympics, I was just floating. Like I did not walk. I did not touch the ground there. I was like so elevated in energy. Like I was just like could not believe that I finally was there. And like so I just couldn't be stopped, honestly. Like I was like I worked way too hard for this to just let this be a whatever experience. So like, yeah, by the time I finally made it, and like it was such a long road, like I mean, it's like I felt like I was a soldier coming back from war. Like by the time I got to the games, I just was like, no one's freaking this up for me. And like I'm gonna talk to every person I know, every person I that sits next to me, every like I was a level 10 every day. And at the cafeteria in the Olympic Village, it's just you're surrounded by the best in the world at every sport. And it's like I'll never forget it. Like you sit at a table and you're just like, I am surrounded by world champions. Like, so I wasn't intimidated at all. I just was so excited. And I just like met everybody, got everybody's email. Everybody's like, I honestly, it's like what Bill Plaschke said. He's just like, this is your moment. So like, I never really felt intimidated because I was just too excited. But had I been something, yeah, you're nobody until you make
Until you're somebody.
you're nobody until you're somebody, and then all of a sudden you're worldwide, and then you're just
Yeah.
like now you guys all care. I was a little I had some resentment, I think, but I never felt like intimidated really. I just was like, I can't because they treated me the same. Like
Mhm.
they didn't treat me they treated me like how they treated their teammates. And I just was like, wow, like I'm one of them, which was really cool.
Yeah, I was going to say now that you've come off from that and then re-entered on the media side, is there like an alumni feeling or like a sisterhood, brotherhood to it all? I know like SNL, if anyone's on SNL, even if there's 20 years between them, they feel some camaraderie of, oh, we did the same thing. There's got to be something similar for the Olympics, right?
I feel it for
Okay.
sure. I feel a big void in my heart for like the people that I'm not around anymore. So I feel it personally. I don't know how because some people have a not great relationship with sport. Like
Yeah.
everybody gets out of the experience a little different.
Mhm.
So some people leave and it was the best time of their life. Some people leave and it was hell. Like some people, so I don't know. But for me, I definitely feel this, like I miss my people and I feel understood in ways that my closest friends will just like never really get. I feel it. And especially in luge, because it's such like a traditional sport, like that only really happens like in the Alps. So like
Yeah.
these little towns run deep with luge history.
Mhm.
So, like when you're in it and you're loved. And like I remember when I took this broadcast job, people remembered me from 10 years ago. And I felt
Wow.
I was just like, wow, like
Wow.
I yeah, like I had old coaches. Because when you're an athlete, you become a coach. Like you don't really go do other stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody that's in the sport, you all trained together when you were younger. So like I feel like I have these uncles and grandpas that like watched me evolve as an athlete, and they would still say things like, remember that race in Austria? And I just like wanted to cry. I'm like, wow, like I feel so cared about that you
Yeah.
even like remembered. Like I didn't remember I did that. So like in the luge world, for sure. Like if I had my luge friends that lived in LA, like I would be seeing them every week. Like if there was the one luge athlete from Romania that I never talked to and they lived in LA, you better believe I'd be inviting him over for dinner every week. Just because we did it together. I don't know.
Yeah. You'd have more in common with them than anybody else.
Yeah.
How are you taking that into your work behind the camera now and coaching and federation? What do you feel specific about your experience that you want to kind of impart on the next generation?
That's a good question. So like to give context on my job, it's a YouTube channel. And
Okay.
we interview athletes before the races and between the races. And I'm the only person on camera. So it's just me, a camera guy, and a director. So like
Fun.
there's no like crew, I guess. For my job, when I get an athlete on camera, it's like a big deal because a lot of people don't want to
Yeah.
come talk to me. They don't think their English is good enough. They're embarrassed to be on camera. So it's like a super run and gun operation. Like pretty much I'm on camera and I have to fill for 30 minutes.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
just like grabbing anybody. So when I am talking to people, I do feel this sense of like I'm trying to keep them close to me. Like I'm trying to keep them to not run away from me. And by doing that, like I do feel like I'm able to ask like the questions that they normally don't get to hear. So like normal interviewers are like, what do you do for your training? Or I don't know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll be a little more like, what would you be doing if you weren't here? Or like stuff like that. What are you doing in the summers? What are you actually doing? You know, and then that's when I get people to talk about, I love motorcycles or I love this stuff. So I don't know. My job is just such a different ball game because I'm just trying to make it happen. And it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to make it happen. It's snowing outside. People like luge people aren't the biggest personalities to begin with. And it's such an insular community. So like they really only like talk about luge. Like and
Yeah.
like luge is only interesting for so long. So I'm trying to spice it up a little bit, but you know, sometimes it's hard.
It's a heroic effort, it sounds like, but that is fun. I mean, are you connected much to the Olympics as far as Paris 2024 or the next Winter Games? Is there something on the horizon of you could be involved in some way, or are you happy with what you're doing right now?
So in Paris, no. Winter Games, no. On Cortina, in 2 years, possibly. We don't really hear until a year before. So
Oh, wow.
commentated Beijing, which was a big deal for me. I wanted to see if I could get to the commentary level to commentate the Olympics. So I commentated luge, all the sliding sports, luge, bobsled, and skeleton, which was hard because I'm not you really have to like know this. The vernacular is different.
Yeah.
You can tell when you haven't done the sport. So I was
Oh.
really trying to learn the skeleton and bobsled stuff. But I did a good enough job, or they told me I did a great job. So like I would be surprised if I didn't hear back from them a year before the games. But then also this job that I have with luge, they're trying to take it to like the Olympic level. But I don't know if they'll be able to take our show to that level because you kind of have to have a lot of rights. And so I don't know. We'll see.
Exciting though.
It is
I,
exciting. It's fun to be a part of.
yeah, I mean, I guess this takes us away from the Olympics to kind of wrap up today's episode, but when you're not doing anything luge, or even growing up when you weren't doing luge, were you watching many movies? I know you said reality TV. What was your guilty
Like,
pleasure all the time?
okay, during luge time, they would
Mhm.
have Harry Potter marathons because
Okay.
this was like when Netflix was delivering you CDs, you know. So
Yeah.
it was like ABC Family Harry Potter marathons. So I do have a little soft spot for Harry Potter. I'm
Yeah.
not like a super fan, but just to like just to be like sitting watching all the movies through, kind of fun. And then I got really into reality TV, The Bachelor. I still die on this hill that it's like one of the smartest TV shows out there, and it'll always be successful. If you want me
Yeah.
to plead my case, I will, but maybe that's for a different episode. Um, and
Did you
then
like The Golden Bachelor? Hold on, before we go any further.
I think if everybody in America watched The Golden Bachelor, like we would be a different society.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Even
and
with what happened afterwards, though,
I know they got divorced, and that was made me so mad.
it was very real, but it was sad. Yeah.
Well, it's just like you didn't need to get married. Like you could have
No.
been normal and dated. Like the reason why I'm so like fired up about The Bachelor and more so The Golden Bachelor is to see these women. Did you guys watch?
I watched.
Okay,
Oh, Madison, you gotta hop on.
to
Uh,
see women be so empowered again, like is emotional. And I think
Yeah.
like as a woman, you're like you're just told, I don't know, you're just raised with such an idea around marriage and like to see these women, you know, 60s, 70s to be acting like they're 18 again. It's just like, wow, like it's never too late to fall in love and it's never too late to be empowered about who you are. And like it was these women were supporting each other and it wasn't like competitive and like so it gave me a lot of hope of like, wow, there's so many chapters to this life and like they're all beautiful and they're all great and you're never
Yeah.
gonna be old and washed up if you don't want to be because these women were hot. Like
They were
they
great.
were great. Anyways,
The
I,
boudoir photo shoot. I was like, wow, all right.
it was incredible. It was so, like it just warmed my heart. I do feel very fired up over the Golden Bachelor. Like everybody should watch an episode of just like, wow, America's a great place. And like these are great people.
Yeah.
But I guess recent movies, I'm just like, it's a lot. Movies are hard for me to sit through because I always end up falling asleep. But I did see a movie recently that just came out, Bike Riders. I almost fell asleep, but I didn't. That was a big deal. But I loved it. It was very good.
I was gonna say, you've owned a motorcycle, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
So did you love it even more? I watched it and I was like, do I need to buy a motorcycle? That's the opposite point of the film. But I'm like, oh man, it really makes him sexy again.
The motorcycle thing is so captivating because it's a whole world. And like I really loved it because I felt seen. So whenever I'll go to these, or I used to in college, I'd go to these women's only campouts.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what it was. It was just like a beer drinking fest of just like these women just like living their best lives. And just like you do nothing. You just sit around and you talk about bikes and you look at each other's bikes and like it's just a crew. And I've never had someone from my life come and experience that with me. My best friend did in college, but like it's just two separate worlds. Like
Yeah.
biker world is a different world. So I loved it because I was just like, yeah, that is totally what it is. Whereas my friends watching the movie, they're like, what was the point of all that? And I'm like, that is the point. The point is you just exist together and you feel like you belong to something.
Yeah. Madison and I talked about the other day. He's going to go see it soon. And then my fiance just saw it yesterday. And it was like, it's mostly vibes, but I think that's the point. Like you feel a vibe, the camaraderie, the friendship, and then kind of how it gets bastardized towards the end with these other biker gangs. You lose a little something. And it was just such a comforting, nice movie. I don't know about comforting, but it was a fun one.
Yeah, totally. No, I loved it. It was great.
Okay, final question from me. What's your favorite baseball movie? Because I know you're a big baseball fan. And baseball cinema is like its own thing.
You know, I don't know if I have one on the top of my mind. I can just think of like The Rookie, like the little kid, like the Disney movie almost. I haven't baseball movies are its own thing, and none are coming to mind, but like any sports movie, just wrecks me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, what's your favorite in general sports movie? Or a
like,
couple favorites, doesn't have to be one.
Remember the Titans? Like, wow,
Yeah.
any Olympic references, like, I'll just like, I mean, I want to see Boys in the Boat, but I'm nervous because I know it's gonna just crush me. I'm trying to think, like, what other.
Years ago, I had watched Eddie the Eagle, and I was like, you have to watch Eddie the Eagle. Have you seen
So
it yet?
good.
Okay, you did.
No, I've heard about it. So
Okay.
good. So
Still
good.
on your list.
Yeah, still on my list.
I think that's going to wrap it up. Let's leave it right there. Kate Hansen, Celine Dion, Bachelor Stan, doing the good work.
Thank you. We're trying.
And for all of us who have not been tuned into Luge, what is your YouTube channel you're doing, and how do we get caught up?
It's called the FIL Studio Show. So just look
FIL
at
Studio
FIL
Show.
Studio Show, and you'll see lots of episodes.
We'll be sure to link it in the podcast notes.
Amazing.
Thanks again for meeting with us and chatting.
No worries. Thank you.
We'll leave that for our cut.
We'll leave, yeah. Director's cut.
Let's talk about The Acolyte. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you what. A lot of people hate this show. In the first few episodes, I wasn't one of them, but I was definitely disappointed. Because I saw some things that were cool, but I wasn't loving it. But I had a friend at work who said, you just got to keep watching. Come on, you can't give up on a Star Wars show. If you love Star Wars, you just got to watch. And then I talked to you, and it was the same thing of, please just watch. I'm so glad I did. And for everyone who quit after episode 3 or 4, saddle up and put your overalls back on and just keep watching because it's so good and it pays off in all the right ways.
Yeah. So you finished it by now?
I finished it. Did you?
Yes, I did. I have two. Number one, it's worth remembering and like always keeping in mind that this is like 300 or 400 years before the main sequence trilogy. So This is like a different time in the galaxy. The Jedi are at the height of their power, which is also equates to the height of their hubris. And the world just it's like the same, but different than what we're used to. And I think, and this is something that I think certainly dovetails with, because I feel I love The Last Jedi. It's certainly like when I watched it a few weeks ago, like has some, now that I'm seeing it a few years removed from originality, like it has some rough spots in it.
Yeah.
But I loved the story and I loved the journey that Luke had to take in that. And there are some similar story beats in this, some similar themes of the Jedi being a little bit blinded by their zealotry, blinded by their idea that they're the only legitimate and valid Force users in the galaxy. And there's a kind of a sense that this story is much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
But it's much ado.
It's much ado in the right ways. Because I will say there's so many things at once at first I was like, what a terrible plot device. Do not give us twins. It's just too easy. And then a lot of child acting, which I just don't love. Sorry, Mr. Spielberg. But instead, it turns it on its head and says, we have a different story to tell, and here's what you're going to get if you stick around with us for what's next. So at least for me, I don't know if you feel the same way. I was really excited to see like, okay, please greenlight a season 2, even if there's some people that are disgruntled. Greenlight a season 2 and be the Star Wars you need to be in the world. Be bold. You know what? Shut people up. If people were mad that Vader was Luke's father after Empire Strikes Back, they got shut up by Return of the Jedi. And I think that's how we see each little iteration of Star Wars. People didn't love Attack of the Clones. It had so many problems, even now. And you had to finish it with Revenge of the Sith. And the same thing for the final trilogy, except for they just biffed it on the last one because they were scared. So don't be scared. Be strong, Star Wars. Get it done.
Yeah, this is certainly bold storytelling. I think just based on my experience of the Star Wars fandom on Twitter and on Reddit, it's a pretty toxic kind of group that can't differentiate between Legends lore and mainstream canon lore. And like they just hate on the fact that Star Wars has a lot of like female characters and people of color characters. And this story is a bold story in that sense. You know, it focuses on two twins, Osha and May. And it's certainly a story about the dark side and the light side of the Force. And I'm interested to see your reaction about this, but the story essentially, you've got a group of Jedi who meddled in things that they had no business meddling in, and a lot of people died because they were meddling, and they ruined the lives of these two girls and forced one of them into the dark side by their kind of blind and ignorant actions. And that's what the story's about. And I would say that it makes the dark side look good, but it almost makes them look empathetic.
It makes them look a little frustrated with the status quo, and that justifies too far of a pendulum swing, I guess. But you can see why, at least for the folks who are outraged, you can see where the brain games really just get them pissed off. Because let's just go there. The same people who hate this and are like, why are you making the Jedi look evil or like bad? Why are you making the Jedi irredeemable? You know, like, putting them in such a poor light, are probably the same people who just love when cops shut off their body cams. And
Yeah.
when you look at history in a non-critical way and you're like, but we won, so we're the good guys. I think it's good, even if it's just blatant, to point out that the status quo oftentimes allows for terrible injustices and a complete abuse of power with little to no recourse. And those who fight against it oftentimes are painted as completely evil, but usually it's a little too far on a pendulum swing of doing the same thing. Whether we're talking about terrorist groups, we're not justifying or saying this is good. The Sith are not good.
Yeah.
But if you're able to be critical, the Sith, it makes an understanding point of where the Sith are coming from. Oh, it's an equal opposite reaction, which is what the Force is all about, right?
This certainly portrays the Jedi as like cops.
Yeah.
And after the last 4 years we've had in America, cops don't have the greatest of reputation anymore.
No.
And at least within a certain demographic. And I think what I really like about The Acolyte is that what I'm seeing is that within the Star Wars universe, when Obi-Wan Kenobi says from a certain point of view, and then Luke is like, from a certain point of view, are you kidding me? that is like a storytelling device that Star Wars comes back to again and again. Because in The Last Jedi, everyone is like, oh my gosh, how could Luke become this person that would think that they could kill a teenager? And it's like, from a certain point of view, that's how it looked. But from a different point of view, that's not how it looked. But then you have to remember in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan is like, your Darth Vader killed your dad. And then it finds out that Darth Vader is his dad. And he's like, what the hell, Obi-Wan? He's like, from a certain point of view, I wasn't lying to you. And then the same thing here is that The Acolyte shows us a story, a very nuanced story that has many different interpretations of it, depending on who your point of view character is. And I thought that was a really good way to like complexify the story. And no one's a villain. Like, even though the Jedi are clearly cops and are clearly blind and hell-bent on their own righteousness, they're not villains. They're like well-intended, overpowered guys with too much authority.
Not that we see any of those here today. It's interesting, and I believe this about just about everything. If you can't be critical of your own heroes or your friends or your family or yourself, you don't truly love or understand that thing, right? If you can't
Right.
point out the blind spots and say, oh, okay, wait, that is a problem. And I think that's probably the big issue here when it comes to the Jedi is this is not saying all the Jedi are evil. This is the bad company. This is the mess ups. These are the people who, in so many different war movies, a future senator's platoon goes into a town, lights them all on fire, and later you have to do cleanup and be like, oh, let's scrub the files because that was not a good thing to do. I think that's what we're seeing here with the Jedi, which I guess is partially why people are so mad about it. But like you're saying, I don't think all the other movies make the Jedi out to be this holy order that's always in the right. The whole point is that they're oblivious and they're prideful.
Yeah.
And it does color things like at the beginning of Phantom Menace, I saw some other folks on TikTok pointing this out. In Phantom Menace, when Anakin goes before the council, or Qui-Gon Obi-Wan, they're talking about the Sith. Darth Maul, seeing him, he had to be a Sith. And they're like, the Sith have been extinct for years. And then Mace Windu turns and looks at Yoda. That completely recolors that scene, which I
Yeah.
know these showrunners are just trying to pay off something they saw. And they're like, hey, maybe they knew that some Sith were around.
Right.
Either way, I think it's fun. I think it's a good expansion of the lore and the story. And I really hope we get the next season, especially with the little. This isn't spoiler free. You've already watched it. Darth Plagueis. Seeing Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
I have not read the books. I know so many people who have, but those who love the books loved his inclusion. What about you? Are you a Plagueis fan? Do you like that whole side of the story?
I loved Chimere.
Manny
Jacinto.
There we go. Jacinto.
I liked the inclusion of Darth Plagueis. Like I kind of knew that there was a potential to see him just because of the timeline that I know he's out there. But I loved Manny Jacinto's The Stranger or Chimere. I thought that was a phenomenal addition to the cast. Even though we all knew in the first few episodes that it was like it wasn't good. It wasn't enough to be a red herring. It was like, okay, we know this guy is the guy in the helmet.
Yeah.
But he did his good plays Jason Mendoza, bumbling idiot routine. And we love it. We love it. Where he's like, hello, even though he's like the bad guy. And then to be such a strong Force user and literally take on 5 or 6 or 7 Jedi and essentially kill them all. I was so cool. Not that killing people is cool, but I think headbutting a lightsaber is got to be one of the coolest things I've seen on screen in a long time.
Yeah.
Because whatever that alloy is, that it's like Beskar, but Cortosis is what it's called. That's an in-universe metal that they didn't just make up for the show, that shorts out a lightsaber blade. And to have a helmet made out of it, and then to headbutt the lightsaber helmet, or the lightsaber with your helmet, is just such great choreography. And one of my favorite lines is when he kills Daphne Keene's character, Jackie. I think Jackie. And Sol is like, how could you? And he's like, oh, Jackie, was that its name? And he was very dehumanizing, calling her an it, very objectifying. But then Sol is like, how could you kill her? And he's like, you brought her here.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wow. The Jedi bringing children into very dangerous situations all the time.
Yep.
And it's not that, he's blaming the Jedi because he's the one who'd actually killed her, but the Jedi keep putting kids in danger all the time.
Yeah. Can't bring a kid to a Sith fight.
No. I think over the course of the season, watching him interact with Osha instead of May really brought some nuance to his character. There's obviously some background between him and the green Jedi with the whip of lightsaber that I saw some TikTok that was like, no, this guy's really old. He could be really old, and it could be like Plagueis resurrected him. He used the Force to resurrect this guy, and that's why that green lady was like so surprised to feel his presence on that planet at that time. But I think he brings like a good nuance to the dark side, because our experience so far of the dark side has just been ham-fisted villains who are just twirling their mustaches because they want to end the world.
Yeah. There's nothing redeemable about Grievous. You don't see General Grievous and go, maybe he has a history. The Green Jedi is Vernestra. She's great because you see a very authoritative, by-the-rules Jedi who also understands sometimes you have to sweep something under the rug. I love that the ending was that she cremated Saul's body out on the lake, creates a cover-up story, lets him be the fall guy, all these things because she understands in the Jedi point of view greater good overall. But yeah, I do love the idea of these Jedi come together, they steal these children. Saul is not the perfect good that we see him at the beginning. We're like, oh, he's the rescuer. He's going to go save Osha. He's really trying to do the right thing. And then you see it from his point of view. And it, like you're saying, like Ben Kenobi talked about, from a certain point of view, he did what was right, but he did what was selfish. And it really shows that all this buttoning up of emotions really doesn't actually work. It's a thin veneer.
Yeah. And when when I was watching this, I was thinking like, I understand what a certain aspect of the fan base is like, oh, let's quit making the Jedi out to be bad guys. This did not make the Jedi out to be bad guys. It made them out to be complex and not all knowing like actors who are a little too powerful for their britches. I wouldn't mind having a show dedicated to what the Jedi couldn't be, like the good part of them. Like when all cylinders are clicking, like I want to see the spiritual Jedi who's able to diffuse the situation and like doesn't have to draw his lightsaber because they such a skill user of the Force that violence is the last thing that they pull for. That they lean into their quasi mythical religious like cultural status, but for good and not for like preserving the status quo. Like I would love to see that story.
Yeah, seeing Torben doing his meditation and kind of in his own little zone, give me Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain with the Jedi. Give me something deep and introspective. Yeah, I was hoping with the Obi-Wan series maybe he would be the passive, sneaky Jedi that doesn't have to draw his saber, but that didn't really work out there. It would be nice to see that side, or to your point of Jedi protectorate or Jedi helping out in the middle of a rebellion. But then again, part of their code is that they didn't interfere too much, so it does create some interesting games there. But my big hope is with Disney and the rest of them doing all this High Republic comic books and novels, they're just IP mining to be able to convert something that's a hit into a show or a movie, which I have no problem with. I'm like, oh, test the ideas. Throw the crazy ones out there and see what sticks. Because that would be a fun era to explore.
Yeah. We almost saw some of what we're looking for in Soul, like, or modern day Soul before he died. Like, some of those first fights, he was just focused on dodging, and he was like really cautious to take out his lightsaber and ignite it. And then you obviously see why. It was because when 14 years ago or however long ago, he was too reactive and killed their mom.
Yeah.
And it was because of his reactivity that happened. But you see that like, oh, he's really hesitant to draw his saber, and he's just more focused on like, oh, he's just dodging everything that's coming his way and letting his enemies like tire themselves out. But yeah, Disney, if you're listening, I would love to see the other side of this story where, the Jedi deserve and they earn the mantle of kind of the projections of the galaxy that they're clearly being projected onto.
Yeah, it's interesting because episode 1, we see some of it, but almost like we never got to see with the original trilogy what made Darth Vader such a mean badass. We have not like fully seen the Jedi in their power being true protectors. The closest thing was episode 1. They go to Naboo, they join the fight, they help defeat the Trade Federation, but even then it's in such like an advisory role with a cut to go find Anakin that it doesn't feel the same. Like you're saying, I would like to see that flip side of, prove to us, show us that they're the protectors, show us why people respect the Jedi.
Yeah, because when you really watch even the Skywalker saga, the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy, like the Jedi have always been a little complicated, like always, like it has always been this way. And so the fans who are just like, oh my gosh, we're making the Jedi out to be evil, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
If anything, we're just making it truer to reality because this is how power structures work in reality. Like you and I come from a religious institutional background that very much mirrors some of the Jedi Order. And absolutely, there are, for the sake of the institution or the good name of the church or the good name of the Jedi, a lot of stuff gets swept under the carpet. Yep. And so this stuff is more just, it's not making the Jedi out to be bad as much as it's trying to be an accurate reflection of how people actually are in reality.
Yeah, which is why I think I love the arc of Saul so much, because you see him as reserved, and then he's lost his friends, and May and Osha situation, and by the end, he is full force striking, ready to strike down the stranger, Khmer.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fun way to show just how close. When Yoda and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon always talk about, oh, don't go to hate. Don't let the emotions take over. That leads to suffering. You see how within one Jedi's lifetime, we can reach that point. So again, love the complexity. I really enjoy the series. Everyone who stopped watching, I was like, please just go finish.
Yeah. I gotta say, watching Osha choke out Saul with the Force, and then watching her lightsaber go from blue to red, it was pretty powerful. It was a little hard to watch because you're watching. I liked Saul. I liked the actor. I liked him in Squid Games, and they picked a good actor for that, which is someone that right off the bat we want to root for.
Yeah,
Like we like this guy, but then seeing Osha feel justified in her choking of this guy out with the Force choke, which is of course a very Sith move, and then watching her what's called bleeding the Kyber crystal from blue to red is just like, oh, she's absolutely tapping into the dark side now. She's made her transition.
Yeah, which I know a lot of people were mad about because it doesn't feel canonical, or Anakin's lightsaber didn't turn red when he was on the Jedi Temple. I don't really care. I thought it was visually it was fun. We can't be that precious with movies that came out already 20 years ago. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool move. It was very cool to watch on screen. And I do love the Osha May switch. Osha being the good, being pissed off and realizing what May already knew. Okay, there's the switch. So, big fan. Hope everyone sits down on Disney Plus and watches it and then has helpful and good discourse about it afterwards, because that's how people are.
Yeah, and I really hope the rest of Hollywood starts casting Manny Jacinto in more stuff, because I know he was in Top Gun Maverick, but all of his scenes got cut, and I think he deserves to be in more stuff because he's so cool. I love him.
Yeah, he's a talented actor. He definitely is, and he's got some good range.
Make sure you tune into the Olympics this weekend on Peacock or through your cable provider.
And go sports.
Go sports.
Go
Sure.
sports. All right, bye.